on our honeymoon, we went to St. Martin, and
set. Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank everyone for attending tonight. Our first item, we have our budget presentation, and I'll turn it over to Kim Aaron.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. The projected 2021-22 budget is $68,130,041 and represents a $67,000, $564 decrease over the current 2021 budget. This decrease is due to a reduction in debt service payments and bus purchase expenditures moving from the general fund to the bus purchase reserve fund. Instructional salaries are up just over $900,000 and include the following new positions. One reading teacher for the primary level, so that each building has a dedicated reading teacher on staff. One teacher in grades 3 through 5 to meet the requirements of the RTI protocols for Tier 3 reading students. 2 elementary teachers, grades 3 through 5, to reduce class sizes in grades 3 and 5. 1 school psychologist and 1 ENL teacher. The school psychologist and the ENL positions are in lieu of BOCES services, as the district has a greater need than BOCES can provide for these services. Non-instructional salaries have increased by $119,000 and include 2 additional part-time IT techs. 1 general mechanic position was eliminated through attrition. BOCES expenses, excluding transportation and special education, are up approximately $200,000. The majority of the increase is due to additional software purchases used to enhance the online learning experiences for our students. New or additional licenses were purchased for iReady, Seesaw, Reading A to Z, Nearpod, and Ready Math, to name a few. Special education, including BOCES, has increased by $1.1 million. Several kindergarten students have been identified as needing BOCES placements. Mr. Collins and his team are in the process of conducting annual reviews, and they continue to monitor and update these projections, striving to bring as many students back to district programs as possible. Transportation costs have decreased by $93,000. Bus purchases have been removed as a general fund expense and will be purchased through the bus purchase reserve. There is a resolution on tonight's agenda to allow the proposition to be placed before the voters in May for approval. Bus driver and bus attendant shortages continue to be a concern. $300,000 has been reallocated from the BOCES Transportation Code to the Contract Transportation Code. This will allow the district to contract with private companies for some of the out-of-district runs, thereby freeing up BOCES resources to transport students throughout the city. The district currently receives 90% transportation aid. Fringe benefits are up just over $270,000. Health insurance costs remain constant, due in part to the Humana rates decreasing for 2021. In addition, the Philmont Health Trust hired a new broker of record who has been tasked with negotiating with the current health insurance carrier to provide the member districts with options for rates for the 21-22 school year. Debt service has decreased by $2.5 million. There are no principal or interest payments for bond anticipation notes, as they were converted to serial bonds now that the capital project is complete. The district's financial planners prepare the debt service schedules and time the borrowings so that there is no adverse effects on the tax cap. For revenue. Since the New York State budget is still in negotiations, revenue remains a mystery. It doesn't appear that STAR will be separated and considered as aid, or will the expense-based aids be consolidated into one special services aid category. But nothing is certain. This bodes well for Gloversville, as our expense-based aids, mainly transportation and BOCES, provide a 90% and 84.3% rate of return, respectively, for expenses associated with those services. The tax cap figure for the district is 1.13%. That will increase the tax levy by $172,596. The $10 million elephant in the room is the federal stimulus aid that Gloversville is earmarked to receive over the next 3 years. No one knows how the aid will be distributed or what strings may be attached to it. One thing for certain is that 20%, or approximately $2 million, must be used to address the learning loss that our students experience due to COVID. This may be through extended school day tutoring, weekend sessions, additional PM school licenses, and a myriad of other instructional strategies that will be developed over the next several months. Funding to address student social emotional needs is all included in the $2 million. Early guidance has indicated that use of the remaining $8 million may be used for allowable expenses under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Expenses may also include, but not be limited to, conducting activities that will address the needs of students from low-income families, children with disabilities, English language learners, purchasing additional technology, providing summer learning academies, providing mental health services, repairing school facilities to reduce the risk of virus transmission, and support student health. As you can see, there is a lot yet to be determined. It is critical to keep in mind that once the federal money is no longer available, how will districts sustain the services that were put in place utilizing this funding? While we are grateful for the funds, the Board of Education will need to proceed with caution and visualize what future budgets may look like without this additional funding stream. Administration continues to monitor the New York State budget proceedings and will provide additional information as it becomes available, both in regards to state aid and the federal stimulus package. Any questions?
Questions? We were hoping to put Kathy on the spot.
I don't think my food can get any redder.
I kind of talked to Demo briefly about it. Is any of that federal money, like, I know, our modified children lost basically 2 years of, sports. Can any money be used towards that, or is it all just educational? Like sports, like getting kids, like maybe setting up some programs and having them, paying some teachers to do some actual programs, getting kids, back immaculate to the sport.
I'm not sure about sports in particular. I would think maybe some, I would say after school activities, but no, honestly, for sure what exactly is going to be allowed.
There might be a broad interpretation that
Right.
allows some kind of enrichment activities. Student emotional aspect might include some sort of. Right. We're going to have summer practices for our football team. Things. I think the dust will clear, and we'll have a better idea how we can spend that money as time goes on. It's pretty difficult doing what Kathy's been tasked doing, creating this budget with so many unknowns. So I'm really impressed with what she's done. I've worked with her and Rick Timms. I think she's done a great job thus far. It's just to, she just went over some things. We've done a lot of cutting in this district since I've been here to be able to add a number of staff, especially at the primary level, to decrease those section numbers. That's huge. I'm sure the elementary teachers in the room would tell you that a class of 20 as opposed to a class between 6, 27 is makes their job much easier, their abilities to provide individual attention. I'm really pleased with what we've been able to put in this budget, and to see budget-to-budget decrease of $67,000, to see a number of things increasing, and not including that. When she said the board needs to proceed cautiously, and I think that's boards of education across the country can't get in a spending frenzy, because this isn't money that's going to be there continually. I mean, when you build a budget, it needs to be money that you can rely on, and that's not the case here. So I think that's really important to keep in mind.
Any other questions? Next presentation, we have Nancy Brown discussing Talking This Teaching Team.
Okay, come up right in the middle, please.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Nancy Brown, and I am a fifth grade teacher at Boulevard, and I'm grateful for just a couple minutes of your time. I would like to talk to you about a programming idea that we developed, and just a little bit of background. It just kind of popped into my head as we were looking for ways to get better readers to come to fifth grade. I teach fifth grade co-teach, and I remembered I'm a second career teacher, and when I went to school, my kids were already in school here in Gloversville, and I was surprised to find out that early literacy was as simple as talking to your kids a lot and taking them with you to a variety of places and just telling them what you're finding out and talking to them about the dry cleaner. And I thought, wow, I didn't know that, so maybe there's other people in our community that don't know that, and maybe that's just a nice, easy way to reach out to our community and help them out. And so fortunately, I shared my idea with my principal, Ray DePasquale, who was kind enough to listen to me and pass it along, and I ended up working with Helen on this, and we were trying to figure out how to package this idea. That, you know, all I got to do is really talk to your kids, and it will be really helpful, and they'll learn a lot of words that will help them in their education. And independently, we found out that there was already a program called Talking is Teaching, which is a part of Too Small to Fail, which is an initiative of the Clinton Foundation. And the great thing is, it exists, and I put in your little packets, it shows you all the kinds of resources that they have. They just have a huge wealth of resources that are free for the taking and modifiable so that we can get our own message to them. So we thought, wow, here's a great way that we could, you know, something that exists that we don't have to create or pay for. And the other component we thought was to just make getting books easier. I worked at Parkers for many years, and we used to walk our kids over to the library because we were right in the neighborhood and show them how easy it was to get a library card and send home the application, and we seldomly had any takers because it was still involved. You still had to go with parents, you still had to supply a couple of forms of identification for where you lived. And so if you have seen these little libraries, there's a little teeny picture, they're not really that little, around in other communities, they're just free libraries. They're just free libraries. You just go up, you take a book and you read it, and when you're through, you can put it back or you can keep it. Just bring another book and put it back. And what we've talked about is there seems to be a wealth of books around. Helen says at her own house, really, she probably could do this, that she has so many books. But I think in the classrooms and when we meet at libraries and just families and people who might sponsor a little library, that it would be easy enough to maintain a nice, no excuses way to just get a book. And that way, you know, if your parent isn't a big reader and you're learning about it at school, you can kind of go grab one. But the main part of the campaign would be about talking to parents of 0 to 5-year-olds. And so there is, you know, when you have an opportunity, a really great overview of the campaign. I got the little address right there, just under Talking is Teaching. And here's the strategy by partners we thought. If we as a district created a steering committee in April, I know Helen's been speaking with a lot of people, and some people are kind enough to show interest in it. And then if we agreed to put up little free libraries, at least our elementary school locations, maybe by summer, we feel like we can partner with a variety of people to get that going. Maybe we can raise enough money to put them in other locations as well in the community. I know we're looking at new playgrounds and planning for new playgrounds. They have playground panels that give this same message, and so maybe we could plan to include those. Maybe use our Facebook page to spread the message and keep giving parents resources that are free. We would want to create an evaluation tool to see how effective we're being and what changes we could make, and also to have a community kickoff event. So before we came to you, we did just want to reach out to the community and see if people had any interest. The hospital is very interested in partnering with us with their pediatricians, and they would reach out, find out who wanted to participate, find out how many clients fall in that 0 to 5 category, and then we would the committee would design bags or whatever to provide them so that we could have get the message out and provide them with some resources. And they were very interested in that. They already have a video that talks to pediatricians, but we could always modify that if we didn't think it was appropriate. We can maybe do an evaluation tool there, like a pre and post evaluation tool of parents to say, was this helpful knowledge to you, or what else would you be interested in learning about? We talk to the chamber. We can certainly use their newsletter to reach out and get some partners, business partners, because we will need some money for this. Also, we talked to the CRG, Downtown Development Specialist. They would be interested in this. They already said, oh, we'd love to put a library in the little Castellan Park there. And they're also always looking for ways to connect downtown with the surrounding area. We even thought of maybe lawn signs, which some communities have used. And we did think that if we partnered with the mayor's office, that we could really end up with a big community support, big kickoff. And I know that Dave has spoken with Vince DeSantis, who said that he'd be up for hearing more about this idea. I think he seemed very enthusiastic about it. So I brought you just a few visual aids that you're not going to really be able to see, but I'll leave them over there when you have a break. But just, I'm sure you're probably familiar with the research about how many words you're exposed to tends to be associated with your parents' income level. And the higher the income, the more words you're exposed to by age 4. It's also the more words you've learned by age 3. And these trajectories really take off in different directions. And it's really as easy as talking to your kids. And did you?
I just wanted to say, Fulton County Public Health would be a great resource.
That's a great idea. It's a really good idea. And to give you an idea of just some of these things look like, they already exist. We even can print them out. These are a small version, but they have bigger versions that are about this big. And I love what they suggest, that you always partner this directions with one of the posters. And it says, talking is teaching, learning begins at birth. When you talk, read, and sing to your child, you build their brain and help them prepare them for success in life. But it's not always so easy to talk to babies, especially since they can't talk back. So we've made it a little easier by displaying these posters covered with fun stuff to talk about. And they do give you like conversation starters, and that's a really good point. Maybe you'll feel silly talking to a baby, but if you know the benefit of it, and this would be great to get downtown businesses, involved with choosing the right one. There's lots more of these. And then there's all other fun stuff, like there's interior transit posters, so you're sitting on a bus and you can learn about this. There's transit shelter posters here. There's billboards available. There's stickers. They make prescription pads for doctors, and all these things already exist. And there is a campaign going on in Onondaga, up in Syracuse. And I just left this because it shows you how you can modify the logo. So it says talk, read, and think Onondaga. That could be Gloversville. So that's the idea. Does anybody have any questions?
I think it's a great idea. Would we have representatives from the district that would kind of help maintain the many libraries that are throughout the community? Would we have people that would?
That's what I think we would try through the committee, is get either a PTA or a building member or a couple of building members who would adopt it. And because we would have to maintain it generally. Yep. And the same in the community, we would have to do the same thing. Yep. Any other questions?
I was just going to say that it truly takes a village, and in this case, a small city. I love all the partnerships, and I think the initiative is a great one, and I commend everyone that's involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll leave this
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for your leadership on this. I did speak with Vince. He's excited about it. These libraries cost about $400 a piece. We think here in the district, by having maybe some district dress down Friday, we can pay for several of these ourselves. And I think if we set up a GoFundMe page through this, we could have 4 to 5 of these purchased by summertime. And I think it's a great idea. I think the notion that parents, this program builds off the premise that parents are the first and most important teacher in a child's life, and you don't need to be a great reader yourself to educate your children, to take a lead role in the education of your child. You just need to engage them and speak to them about various aspects of the world. And I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. The fact that you've already, by the time I met with her, Helen, she already had the hospital, the chamber, so she did the lion's share of this right in the beginning, and I really thank you for that. I think it'll take years to see this really have an impact on the children as they come into kindergarten, first grade. But one thing we have is time to invest in our kids. And I really think that this could be something that could be a game changer for the community.
Thank you, Nancy. Next, we have a math presentation from the math department chair, Elizabeth Trice.
Hi, I'm Liz Trice. I'm a sixth grade math teacher here at the middle school as well as department chair. I'm also standing here in the place of Missy Contina, who can't be here tonight. She sent me something to read, and when I was looking over what she wanted to present, I found that there was a lot of overlap between both the high school and the middle school. So some things we've done to target the essential standards. Both middle school and the high school met as departments in August to look over our curriculum and try and target what those essential standards were going to be for this school year, knowing that we were not going to be able to touch upon all topics. We specifically made sure to talk, at least in the middle school, about things that we should touch upon that seventh grade teachers did not have to focus on, so that we were utilizing our time to its fullest. We keep reevaluating as departments throughout the school year, seeing what's working, what we need to perhaps omit or focus more time on. And we also had a liaison, Donna Steed, that has been working in both the middle school and the high school, has visited 7th, 8th grade and high school classrooms. She comes from another district, and she's been helping evaluate teacher lessons and suggest ways to promote better learning with the remote learners and getting them more engaged. When it comes to something that we in the middle school are very excited about, we just signed on for a new program, eMath Instruction, that we will begin implementing next year. We always try to be cohesive throughout the years in the middle school, but we've relied on creating our own curriculum. So this is something that adds another level of consistency as we go, because it's a program that they can follow for the years. When it comes to student engagement, I think that we're learning as much as the kids are this year. We've found, of course, that using Zoom on a daily basis gets the kids engaged. All of the teachers have been, I shouldn't say all, but many of the teachers I know, at least in the middle school, have been recording and posting lessons every single day, so that any student that was absent would be able to revisit the skill, or see things again that they might need to just look over. We've also incorporated a lot of online resources, games like Kahoot, Quizlet, Gimkit, that have really engaged kids in learning, because it just makes it a fast-paced game, and they don't even realize what they're doing. I know today I used Kahoot in review for a quiz, and the kids were so excited. They're like, oh, I forgot that we're reviewing for a quiz tomorrow. So these are all modes that are getting them really excited. And in the middle school, we have a few teachers participating in better lessons with coaches that are allowing them ways to better incorporate Zoom, deal with distance learning, and just open up paths of more critical thinking with the kids. So I hope I touched upon it all. I don't know if there's any questions, or... Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry.
Math is one of those subjects that I think has been very difficult to teach in this environment, and I applaud the efforts of the department to take it head on. The math department was actually the first department to really dive into synchronous learning, and that kind of prompted the rest of the departments to kind of dive into it. So it's not an easy subject to teach to students in their bedrooms. I think our student board member maybe could attest to that. Just reading from our peers, and I don't think anybody would argue that math is a subject that's best taught every day on site. So I've been hard for the math department, and appreciate everybody's efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a ELA presentation from Rachel Bailey and Chris Roars.
Go first. All right. I'm Rachel Bailey. I'm the department head at the for the English department at the high school, and I teach ELA 9 and the honors classes. So when we're looking at the standards and at the beginning of the year, so we were trying to figure out which standards we were going to start looking at, we knew that definitely it was going to be on the reading and the writing aspect of it. So we kind of narrowed it down to usually the first couple of each one that was on there, so text evidence and summarizing, because summarizing is very important when it comes to the reading. If they don't understand what they're reading, it makes it very difficult for us to go any further for critical thinking and like. Vocabulary we're finding to be very important. We're trying to focus on that, because without the vocabulary, they're not going to be able to do the reading. So there's been a lot of focus onto that. Given that ELA is skills-based, we don't have any anchor texts. So we try to pull in, we're mainly skills-based. So we get to choose a wide variety of texts to use to be able to teach those skills for the argument writing and analysis. We work on the writing aspect of everything. But we have scaled that back. We're finding that we're kind of like reteaching things like sentence structures and paragraph writing, because they seem to be kind of weak in there. So we've been kind of building that back up. Engagement, and for us, we're a department that is very much pen and paper, so the technology aspect has been a big learning thing for my whole department. So we're trying to find the technology ways to be able to encourage them. So we do frequent use of the Google Classroom, Zoom. We're always zooming in and trying to engage with the kids. Using Nearpod, using Google Forms, just working on like surveys to just start generating discussions. Students in some of our senior classes, they're actually doing research that and doing activities that revolve around real life people. In Rebecca Sierra's film class, they watched and read Coach, and what they did was she had all of her students write a letter to the coach, and they sent them to him, and they are now waiting for a response for it. So we're engaging them and getting out there and seeing the people that are out there, the real life people they see on film. They work together, and we try to do a lot of independent reading. We're trying to push into that, get more student choice. But for this year, it's just been very challenging for all of us, so we're all still learning, and the kids are actually really great helping us with the learning too.
I just have a question. You said you're now pen paper department. I read a survey from the students Mrs. Hazard did, and a lot of the kids said that they enjoy the fact that they're able to respond in using technology as opposed to pen and paper, and they said that they tend to write more. Have you found that to be the case?
There is. It's a little bit of both, because I still have like my honor students. They really do. It's not so much the pen and paper. They have no problem typing with the technology that they have. Sometimes they like the hard copies of the stories that we read. But I have noticed that, at least with my ninth graders, that they like the technology. They like to be able to interact with it. So, you know, we're kind of trying to break out of our role of the pen and paper and meet them with the technology too.
That's one of those aspects I hope we learn from the pandemic and utilize. It's been a tough year for everybody, but that's something I hope that we continue when things get back to normal.
And if I could sort of segue, I think that's been a focus at the middle school. My name's Christian Roars, the middle school department chair. Regarding writing, is now we're at high school, we can type, we're expected to type, but we're also dealing with children who do not know how to type. And the task might say, please keep your response to 4 to 6 sentences. They're writing simple sentences, not compound sentences, not elaborating an idea. They're just writing to the task and not so much giving out their thoughts. So as a matter of fact, this building, in our department, we have moved towards going back to paper and taking a picture of the notebook and submitting it. I mean, because we have not seen that. And with that, we have seen a lot of discrepancies and not so much fluency, syntax, but also handwriting. And that is that's a big red flag, as y'all know, regarding writing. But as a priority standard, that's been our biggest thing. As far as writing, working on those little basics, certainly fluency and everything like that. And I think, I would say probably a lot of, sentence practice in the morning, or sentence practice first thing in class, but also just, what's the difference between using a pronoun versus a noun, all right? And reflexive pronouns, all these sorts of things. That's the focus that is not necessarily, oh, it should have been done. It just needs to be readdressed. Because I think once we all hit that pause button last March, yeah, we had a number of kids regress, but we also had a number of kids just freeze in time. You know what I'm saying? And, okay, so here we are, going on almost 40. We're still addressing it, and that's fine, and that's grand. But it's something to be mindful of, that we all need these little reminders, all the reminders. That has been our priority standard regarding writing fluency. Certainly, writing to task, narrative writing versus formulaic writing. We have developed a writing structure called what we call the CS test, all right? And that's claim, introduce, evidence, analyze, provide your claim, introduce the evidence, frame the quote. These are all like FMCC standard aligned. When I taught there, using the research from They Say, I Say, from Graff and Birkenstein, all these little sort of moves in writing that are conducive to appropriate argument writing, but I think it just goes to show with like anything, not just an argument essay, right?
Yes.
I mean, even when we were all working together, just looking at these different moves and the vertical alignment that we had for quite some, and we still do have, get us wrong, we still have that. We noticed like, wait a second, they're doing a move in 8th grade. Let's make sure they're doing it in 9th. Oh, they're doing it in 9th. Let's make sure we're starting it in 7th. You know what I'm saying? So that sort of thing is definitely happening. I did sort of recycle the one handout I gave you guys about 2 months ago, but I added more to it. Another focus we've had this year regarding writing and is the focus on social and emotional learning. It's been a tough year for the kids. It's been a real tough year. You'll notice outside, right behind Mr. Halloran, all right, that mural, the Be Kind, that would be Fran and Holly upstairs joining the kindness unit, pay it from viewing of the film Pay It Forward and some additional readings, working together towards promoting a more kind environment. Also, what are we noticing about ourselves and like what's been missing since this new school year? Like, yeah, the high school, right?
Like students being sometimes.
Yeah, just kind of, but just in general, just, are they just bored and just
Yeah,
miserable?
there's like, it's kind of hard to keep the attention when
Yeah.
it's like the same thing just looking at a screen.
And are you stand up?
Yeah.
What are they making you read? Like Macbeth?
Well,
Something
we're
you
reading
work?
Piano.
I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? You know, something like, oh my God. But what was that?
Hamlet.
Oh, oh, even better. Oh, there you go. But the focus is not so much on the reading, but what does it mean to us as writers, all right? I wanted to sort of echo what Nancy Brown said regarding the Talking is Learning program. We did, Helen, Dr. Stetzel reached out to me. We are going to have the public library on board. Andy and I have already been discussing having little public libraries. We are so on board with it. I'm on board with it. And the focus is just getting a book in all the kids' hands. I mean, that's just it. Our librarian, Bonnie Lindsay, her intention for, I'm not trying to spoil any surprises here, so folks at home, if you're listening, but we want every kid in the building to go home with a book. We're taking donations. We've organized a book drop and swap amongst faculty and staff, spring cleaning. Okay. We haven't got many donations yet, but we'll wait till after break. That gives people plenty of time to clean out their shelves. But the intention is every child, grades 6 through 8, and I'd like to see 9 through 12, goes a book. That is being worked on at the high school level too. Yep. Fabulous. You will also notice, I think Sharon said it beautifully, it takes a village. It takes a village. And I did attach here on your second page, join the conversation. This is our current reading list, grades 6 through 8. These are whole class novels. Now, we have adopted this mindset of what we call choice reading. All right? So you might have Ed, Vinny, and Kevin. All right? They're all in the class together. I have, now, no, Jen, it's fine. I got this. I've seen worse. Now, bottom line is, they're in the class
You don't want
together.
me in your class.
Of mice and men, of mice and men, of mice and men. He's gonna say, great book, he's gonna say, big whoop, and he might say, no. What's the point in teaching the same book to all the kids in the class? What we've been moving towards at the middle school is offering 3 titles that address the same theme, same concept, same idea. We've worked with Helen and worked with reading teachers, even our reading teachers have worked towards this, choice reading. What do you remember from A Long Walk to Water?
It was about, forgot the kid's name, Salt, right?
Yep, keep going.
It was about the North and South Sudan Civil War, and the girl part of the book was fiction.
Yeah, what happened to Susan? Because there is no Susan. That's the point of non-meaningful reading, okay? And no, I'm sorry, I hate to put you on the spot, but that's the point, folks. It's, what does he take from it? All of them had to read it. That was a Common Core book. That was where it's at. That was a module book. Yes, we still offer it, but why not offer titles that mean something to him? Mean something to him and her, all right? Instead of teaching to the book, we're teaching to the idea and letting folks take meaning from it, and I'll stop talking. Any questions?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Oh, yes, and our students did collect quotes from the books that they've read, grades 6 through 8. You've all been given a bookmark that I laminated. All right, the students. They chose them, yeah. They vary, some are overlapping, but we had grade 6 through 8 from anything from Save Me a Seat to The Birds by Daphne du Maurier. Oh, wasn't that a great story? He loved it, didn't he? We invite you all to please take the bookmark you've been given, and I'll provide you with a copy of the book. And join the conversation, because it takes a village. Thanks.
Next item is public comment. I believe we received anything. If anyone has any comment, please put it on the Facebook page. Just include your address. We'll either get back to you at the end of the meeting or get and hold you after the meeting. We'll move on to board discussion. We have the Board of Education minutes from the March 8th meeting. Any questions on those comments? Motion to approve those minutes. John, second by Kevin. All in favor? I have to abstain. All right, any other items for board discussion tonight? Moving right along. We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, I promise to be brief. If he doesn't believe it, I will be brief. I'd like to start by congratulating our retirees. We have Holly Walworth, Maria Kasakis, Greg Hayner, and Al Fry. Thank them for their years of service. I'd also like to congratulate our Andy Jablonski and Cody Headwell, who emerged from the 2 principal interview committees as the successful candidates, and I'm happy to recommend them for appointment tonight. They've been an asset thus far in their roles, and I have high hopes and high expectations for them if their board approves tonight. So congratulations on being where you are tonight. I also like to point out that on the agenda is the appointment of a gentleman named Chad Rulson for the Facilities 1 position, and I have great hopes for him. I think he will do well in this position. He's already been in a few times. We're hoping to have him start on May 3rd, and he would work alongside Rocky for 2 months before Rocky retires on July 1. So I appreciate board's willingness to allow for that grace period to transition. Construction update, met with Turner Construction and CS Arch. On the agenda is a roof scan. They asked if they needed to come do a presentation on that. I said the board will trust that we are going to get the right roof scan. The boulevard, although, as Kathy said, the project is over, but that last piece of that boulevard roof is still sliding in under that last project, so that's great, because one less roof we'll have to address moving forward. So that project will commence this summer at Boulevard, and on the end is just the proof of the roof scan. I asked Mike DeMagistris to come, because obviously he has been our point person, all things COVID related, and with athletics fired back up, it's one of those areas that when you bring kids together, different communities, now different counties, parents want to see their children. It's walking a fine line. The virus is diminished, but it's not gone. It's hovering right around 3.9, 4%. So Mike continues to have a tough job, and he continues to do well. There was a question over the weekend about visiting spectators, and I asked Mike to come and just kind of speak to athletics and anything COVID related. If the board has any questions, I ask you to ask Mike now.
Just as Mr. House said about the 4%, with higher sports going around with football and volleyball, we have to watch that number. So today yesterday we were at 4.1, Montgomery County was at 4.1, and the update usually comes at 11. Today it comes at 1:30. We dropped to 3.9, Montgomery County went to 4.3. So we were sending volleyball today to Amsterdam. We had to postpone that game. Broadalbin was playing Fonda. They had to postpone it, so we kind of shifted and went to Broadalbin today for a non-league volleyball match, because we're within the county and we can play teams within our county that are, we're under 4.0. So that is always a fine line we have to watch. Our football teams, there's only 3 football teams in the county, so we have to watch that this week. We're playing a team from Albany County, so if it goes above 4% for Friday, we have a plan with the 3 schools of how we're going to proceed, because it would be us, Johnstown, and Broadalbin. Obviously, all 3 of us can't play, so we are talking how we would proceed this week. Our soccer team is in a quarantine until they come back the 31st. So, those kids have lost 4 games. We're trying as best we can make those up, but it's unfortunate. When we play another team and someone has COVID on the other team, anyone in the game has to quarantine. So, 80% of those kids are in a quarantine. But our girls soccer team, field hockey is going. Swimming is virtual, so hopefully we have no issues in the pool. But we're off and running. We're trying to get these kids as many games as they can this fall season. With regard to spectators, each school is doing something different. With our stands, and it's been so cold, we haven't had that many people out there. So we're accepting home fans. Everyone has a badge. We're using a QR code, so when spectators show up, our home spectators show up, they take their phone out, they'll take a picture, or they take their camera, and it scans it, and all the COVID questions pop up. That goes to my Google Drive, and we can track the people that are coming in and coming out. We don't have bleachers on both sides of the field, so right now our rosters are capped at 20. So if we had 40 sets of parents, I can only fit 52 people in the bleachers, spaced out at 6 feet. So we decided that we will not accept visiting fans, but we're not telling people that they can't watch the game from the sidewalk or the parking lot. So we had people show up and do that. With inside, there is no fans inside, and we've had a lot of questions about that. Why aren't we allowing fans inside the gymnasium for volleyball? The reason being is if one of our parents shows up and they're positive, our kids have to quarantine. I'd rather see our kids play and have the parents that they can watch a live stream than go to a quarantine because someone is positive inside the gym. That's the only difference between inside and outside. Every kid's going to have to quarantine. In a short season, I don't really want 10 days of quarantine if one of our parents is positive. So if there's any questions, I'm glad to answer them. The spring season, just so everybody knows, there's been so many changes with spring season. It was May 2nd, it was April 28th. Everything has been pushed to April 25th now. There is a proposal with the baseball committee to change that date because there's concerns about pitchers and arm injuries. So there's a proposal that's went to the section. We're waiting on a ruling on that to see what's going to happen. So I'll let our head baseball coach know if that changes shortly. We should have that hopefully by April 1st. Any question on?
Thank you, Mike. As you can see, he has a tough job. It's very fluid, and he's done a nice job this year with that. You do have a question?
The 4%, is that for the high-risk sports, or is that for all sports?
High risk only.
Okay.
It's only, so it's high risk for fall too, is volleyball and football. So that's only high risk. And all kids have to wear a mask, and I would think Kathy and Dave found us and purchased a kid mask. We got all our winter sport teams, all our fall two sport teams, Under Armour masks, and our footballs are wearing, football players are balaclavas. So it's definitely a different time, but our kids are participating.
Are they allowed to practice, Mike? So if, let's just say, games are canceled because they're playing, we're at 4.2, are the high-risk sports all allowed to practice?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's say if we went 4.2, we're allowed to play inside our county, but there's only,
Okay.
there's only so many, 3 football schools in
Right,
Fulton County.
right.
So we're working together. If we can get above that threshold, or if Albany County's above it, we have a plan moving forward for Friday or Saturday.
Along those lines, Superintendent of the HFM BOCES sent a letter to the Commissioner of Department of Health in New York State asking for the CDC guidelines, reduction of 6 feet to 3 feet to be adopted by the New York State. That has not happened as of yet. We also asked for more common sense and consistency in quarantine and how that is done. As of now, it varies county to county. And if we are able to bring more students in, that's a win for instruction and for learning. But if the virus is still with us, we still have students, we still have staff who contract it, even currently. So it's not gone from our schools. And if we're able to bring more students in, I would hope that there would be some common sense applied and consistent practice in quarantine orders, such as in Fulton County right now, somebody tests positive in a room, everybody in that room needs quarantine. So it's kind of like I think about our gymnasium and volleyball. It seems to me that if a parent standing in the far corner and 2 days later they test positive, that the kids out on that court with masks shouldn't have to quarantine. But as of now, they would. So that's what we're asking for with some changes if they do adopt the CDC's guidelines. I know a number of districts in our region have been able to get more students into their buildings. The fact of the matter is we simply do not have the space or the staffing to bring our students in every day. We would love to bring our students in every day. Our K-5 population, our 6-12 population, where we can, we are trying to massage it and doing it. We are not saying, we can't do it at all, so let's not try at all. We are trying to accommodate where and when we can. And that's a fine line to walk, and it's difficult, but we're doing it by staying in compliance with the Department of Health's expectations, regulations. And the only way we can bring back more students en masse is if the guidelines change. So that's where we are. And last thing I wanted to say in my report is on the agenda is a contract for the CSCA food service. And I thank them for their negotiating. They were last act, so.
Questions? All right. Next, we have the Assistant Superintendent report, Mr. Wager.
I just have two brief items. The first one is the honor roll policy that's came to our attention by happenstance. I'll be honest, it's not anything I had given a close look to before. One of the provisions that could potentially keep a student from making the honor roll was a grade of D, which in this case is below a 70, but still passing. So if a student had averages in all their other courses and a 66 and 1, and it elevated their overall average to make the honor roll, they wouldn't be eligible under this policy. That stopped. Going into the third marking period, that will not be the case. We don't want to dissuade students from taking rigorous courses and challenging themselves and they may run into a wall with a course where they're really working hard and to get that 66, 67, 68, and all of their other classes are still in the 90s, and it'd be unfortunate for them not to receive the honor roll designation because of they chose to challenge themselves and take on a more rigorous class. So that'll be adjusted in the language and the policies that go along with honor roll and grading will reflect that. I'm not 100% certain of the history of that, but it was time for it to be amended. And again, we're not looking to be punitive or harm kids through no fault of their own because they choose to take on something that might be outside of their comfort zone and really push themselves academically. The second piece is, I know that it went out in the packets, adjustment to the secondary grading policies for this school year. And this really started as a conversation that originated of a number of students that, one, either that just weren't present in the hybrid model, and two, those kids that were present when they were able to capture them were getting by, but those days that they weren't in school, they just were struggling to get things done. And how do we hold those kids that are putting forth an effort harmless due to circumstances beyond their control? It's really kind of COVID, global pandemic related adjustments. And it led to other sharing of articles on grading in the 0 to 100 point scale, and it really opened some furtive conversation to look at how do we assess and evaluate students in general. So some of the basic provisions that we shared with you guys in the packets that Danielle sent out was, one, moving that floor grade for a course in a marking period from 50 to 60. It doesn't move someone from failing to passing, but it does to overcome a couple of 50s in a 5-grade scale passing. It becomes it can become an absurd challenge for some kids, where they may have 2 50s and then two marking period grades that are passing but in the mid-60s, and they still may need an 80 on the final exam to pass. And that may just not be in the cards. It isn't necessarily a true reflection of their growth and learning over time. So those were some of the thinking conversation that went into that process. The next piece is looking at a one-shot final exam weighing as much as an entire marking period for figuring out a student's final course average. It seemed to us, the logic is that that's a bit disproportionate in terms of measuring a student's what they can accomplish. So to mitigate that in the short term, again, just really driven by the environment we're living in right now, is to students still have to sit for the final exam, but average the 4 highest scores between final and the 4 marking periods to determine a final grade. That benefits all students, regardless of how their marking period grades are. I know my own teaching passive students that are in the low to mid-90s every quarter do the work, they work hard, they get the material, and they're not strong test takers. And they end up showing up and getting an 83 on a Regents exam or a final, and it brings their overall average down. Again, not true reflection of the progress that they made. We'll go into another argument about one-shot big-ticket assessments and measuring student learning. So that was the rationale that went into that. Those were the two very biggest pieces of it. The language still needs some tweaking, particularly when looking at our fully remote students and the ability to come in and take final exams and natures of those finals as to what they look like. And like I said, we're really looking to do no harm through policies that were not bad policies to begin with, but may not be most appropriate and applicable based on the circumstances of the school year. And for students that have been absent, not coming, in the Zooms or not showing up in person, those students that just have fallen off the map, this isn't going to make much difference for them. We're still working and doing the outreach and doing the home visits. I know Dr. Damali and the street teams with Andy Slezak at both the middle school and high school are hitting kids and stopping at homes and trying to get kids to come in. That work still continues, and maybe we can capture some of those and maybe we can't. We believe we're giving kids a little bit of hope and an opportunity to hang in there if they can, hey, if I do the math, instead of 50s, it's now 60. This is now attainable for me, with the hopes that it's going to be a carrot that hooks them back in, that brings them to us, we can get help. It also comes with greater mediation opportunities for kids. It's not just giving them the opportunities through our grant funding, carryover monies from funding that we didn't get to use last spring to provide that additional support and tutoring after school as a place to get us through June, where we can take time and look at the grading policy from a big picture lens, and how do we remediate the loss that have occurred over the course of the school.
I want to thank Jim and the department coordinators, the secondary administration. This had a lot of different perspectives in this conversation, and I like what they came up with. And I think it's important to note that what we are doing for this school year is common practice in some districts in this state in the best of years. So I understand that what we're doing is not popular with everybody. There's some who feel like we're making it too easy for kids who don't try hard enough to be successful. I guess to that, I would just say, we're in the business of helping people achieve. We're not just record keepers and you pass, you fail, you pass, you fail. We should be in the business of inspiring and making people better versions of themselves. And education is far more than a red pen on one side, black pen on the other, and determining and using a calculator to determine a final grade. And I hope that this conversation evolves into a conversation as time goes on, and thinking back to normal, whatever that means, of really taking a deep dive on what grading looks like. Should September and October count as much as May and June? The current scheme, even in this one we're about to adopt, it does, and should it? There's standard-based grading applied across the country, across the world, frankly. So this might create an opportunity for us to examine how we go about assessing learning and determining mastery or competency in any curriculum. So, thank you.
Questions? I just had one, fourth quarter with the extension of time to turn things in. How will that work, given the run rate into summer school starting?
We have some flexibility as to when students can start summer school, and I'm thinking particularly for our seniors, and we do our senior summer academy, as long as they get their requisite number of days in and the seat time in doing the work, and they're finished by what would traditionally be the end of the August Regents period for reporting purposes. We have a great deal of flexibility there. And in terms of having staff to be able to collect and grade that work, some of the additional monies that we didn't use last year for summer learning and senior summer academy, those different things have been earmarked and set aside for teachers who may volunteer to do that. One of the things that's still open for discussion based on the timing is that additional 3 weeks from the fourth marking period too long. And it may be, that may be something we have to look at, and not only the logistics, but the manpower, the personnel to be able to do it.
Reduce Regents Week.
Yeah.
It's only standard being offered, so the conversation came up, and we're not saying we saw every angle and that came up. I think it's realistic to expect teachers in that Regents Week to really reach out to kids who are going to be on that bubble and get those kids in prior to the end of the school year. So if we have kids who need, and it's 3 weeks into July, to get their act together and to be successful, there should be very few students, and there should be a very good reason as to why those students weren't doing the work in June to be successful. But that's certainly a piece of this that when we kind of thought about it afterwards, it's like, okay, go down the school year. But regional summer school conversations, nothing is etched in stone. The fact that there will be no exams in August, regional discussion about pushing summer school back to late July. Instead of having the students start typically like they have in the past, early July to meet that August Regents deadline, they're talking about a 4-week regional summer school starting at like the 3rd, 4th week of July, so it actually wouldn't run into it. But I don't want to rely on a regional summer school per se, because I think we've always participated, in fact we host it, but we need to take care of our students first and foremost. So as we look in the next few months, the secondary team under Mr. Wager's leadership will present a plan of how we're best going to start triaging the learning losses occur. With funding that's coming through from the federal government as well. So, plenty of money to address what's occurred, whether you support stimulus or not, spending on the federal government's part. There's going to be plenty of money for us, but money doesn't cure all problems. We need solid plans, and we need student parent buy-in to start backfilling that hole.
It will help us expand our 811, 1211 credit recovery grant for the first time last summer, which really benefited those high school special education. It'll allow us to expand that service along with taking that senior summer academy model, which really benefited the students that chose to participate, expanding that to capture more of our high-risk populations, and that we have some good structures in place that when that money becomes available, we can leverage that very effectively.
Next item is student board member report. Cole?
I did the report with Dr. O'Malley about the senior events and how students felt that went to school every day, how they felt about it. And every student that I've talked to that in every day, they said they're happy to be back. They felt safe. They never felt they were going to be at risk. And one of my closer friends' moms are very strict about COVID, and he's going every day perfectly fine, and he's happy about it. For the senior events, a lot of the seniors are liking what they're doing so far. Yesterday, Sunday, there was a bowling event put on, and I went to it. There wasn't too many people there, but the people that did go seemed to be having fun, and they enjoyed it. Students like the masks and the keys Miss Sierra handed out, and then the selfies that they're doing, they're kind of so-so with people. It's just kind of hit or miss with that one. But the thing the seniors really want is just to have a prom of some sort where they can bring their dates or friends and just have a good time before the senior school year ends.
I received that from Dr. Kamala today. I haven't got a chance to really review it, but you're talking about some sort of more activity for seniors. I think I can speak for the board that we want to see something like that happen. So as long as we're not going against the grain of what's allowed, I would think that we're going to be able to do something to accommodate the seniors. But I certainly need to work with high school administration. I talked to Osama today about senior awards night, and whether the virtual awards night last year, I didn't think that was ideal. But I think people would like to be there. Maybe it's just something where we bring senior recipients and their parents in, and maybe the classmen are remote. But I would love to. There's a lot of events coming down in the next few months that we need to re-examine how we do it, because it's may not be like a normal year, but we also we're not in the same position we were last year, where everything was under such lockdown. So we're doing something on the 25th of June. What that looks like yet is the 25th. Got the date right. It's not going to be like last year. We hope to do something on site with students together and some family members. It may not be the ideal number of family members per child, but we want to do something for the students and get together and celebrate your accomplishment the proper way. And we did best we could for last year's class. It took a lot of time, a lot of planning. It took days and days and days. We had board members there on the stage and appreciate their time. But I don't think it wasn't ideal for the students. So we're going to try to get together as many proper celebrations as we can at the end of the school year.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody have any questions for Nicole? On to recommended actions. We have 8.01 through 18.75. Questions, or anybody need anything pulled to both separately? All right, take a motion to approve those items by Sharon, seconded by Ed. All in favor?
Can we make Mr. Jablonski and Mr. Hedwell give a speech?
Good.
I'd like to thank the Academy for consideration. That's all. Thank you. I do need an executive session.
All right. Now I'll take a motion to move into executive session for contract items and personnel items. Motion by Kevin, seconded by John. All in favor? All right. There'll be no action taken afterwards. Thank you for attending, everyone.